What's up, and welcome to this module on thriving in the shred. This is going to be all about how to navigate real life. So, the vacations, the stress, the real things that are going to come up for you, like illness, PMS, holidays, work stress, all of these things. And I want to normalize that these are not interruptions, they are just a part of this process. And I'm so excited about this module because this is all about skillful adjustment. You're going to feel so empowered by the end of this module, and you're also going to move away from that perfectionist tendency. So let's dive in. Of course, at first we start with a quote, and this one is by Dr. John Berardi. So he is one of the founders of Precision Nutrition, and he says, "The perfect plan you can't stick to is worse than a good plan you can." And I want to call you out because if you are that type of person that you know what the perfect plan is, right? And maybe you came into the program or there was a moment of time where you're like, I know what to do, I'm just not doing it, right? And that is knowing the perfect plan, but having a hard time actually sticking to it. And this is where I really want to emphasize adherence over intensity. And you've seen this so much already throughout our program, throughout our coaching, but this module is going to show you very practical ways to dial things forward, dial things backwards, and really adjust based on the different things that are going to come up in your life. And speaking of the different things that come up in your life, our clients experience all the things, right? And life does not pause for you. So there is no pause button when it comes to your progress and what you're doing with your health and that sort of thing. Even though it feels like sometimes you might want to pause things, right? You say, "Oh, I will pause until the kids go back to school," or "I'll pause until I'm done with the rest of this like work stress," right? But the thing is, life doesn't pause. And you are so seen and you are so heard throughout this whole process. I hope you understand that, because these are the things that our deep fit clients experience throughout this whole program, things that you are probably experiencing yourself. There are troubles with exercising regularly because of the demands of daily life. There's difficulties dealing with stress, at least some of the time. Most of our clients work 8+ hours per day, most of the time 12 plus, and sometimes these are night shifts or swing shifts. They deal with moderate to high work stress and caregiving stress. So think kids' sports, maybe taking care of parents, whatever that looks like, or patient load even. You experience stress at home, whatever that looks like. You also have a busy social life, and you travel or vacation multiple times per year. And all of these things can feel like a lot, right? You're high performing, you feel like you're handling them all super well. But when it comes to the fitness nutrition side of things, sometimes some of the stress can knock some of that out, right? And throughout this whole program, you have learned all the skills to be able to like work through a lot of these things. But again, today I'm going to show you why this matters so much and then how to do it in practice too. And you already know, like, there is this problem with all or nothing, right? We have this mentality of the on off switch. So if I can't go as hard as possible, then I just pause all my efforts, because if I can't do it perfectly, then I go into F it mode. Why do it at all, right? And you might still have some of that voice and that inner critic in the back of your head saying some of those things, because I will tell you that it takes time. It takes time to recondition your thoughts to get to a place where you are in the always something mentality. So you will find me having these things like reminders and these different systems that will help you to get out of that yo-yo cycle, because it's not a discipline problem, it's a cycle. And it is all about developing the skills of consistency, confidence, and then self-trust as well. And I want to show you too, like, what does progress look like whenever you do have this all or nothing mentality? And this is what happens when you press pause. And this was the cycle you were in before you joined Deep Fit, right? You would have like a vacation that's coming up. So you had all this progress. The vacation starts, you pause, and then it's really hard to get back on track. Your progress goes back down. And then you have this moment of, okay, I'm ready to go again. And it just goes like this. And this can be weeks, maybe every Monday. This can be months. And for most people, this turns into years. And you stopped this process by joining Deep Fit. And I'm going to show you how to never have this happen again. Okay. Because my goal is to be the last coach that you ever have. So I hope that showing you this system will show you a way to keep going on your progress, keep going on your health goals, or whatever other goals that you have without ever pressing pause. Okay? So you're never starting over again. Introducing the Deep Fit dial system. Okay, you don't pause, you don't start over. I'm going to show you how to adjust the dials instead of flipping it on and off. And this is what mature sustainable fat loss is going to look like. It's also going to be how building muscle looks like for you. So if you go into a build, it's also going to be how a maintenance phase looks like. So when you get into the badass balance phase and even going into lifestyle mode, doing this on your own, the dial system is going to work for you so well. And you're really going to learn how to coach yourself through changing seasons, the changing conditions, whatever that looks like. And for the shred, I do have a specific shred edition for you. And these are the different dials that we're going to focus on today. And then I also have a resource for you that's going to go deeper into these. And then they're also going to show you how to create your own dials, because you are going to have different goals. Things are going to change. You're going to have different seasons. So you might have different dials than what is right here. Okay? The ones that we're going over today, though, we're going to talk about the nutrition one, and then the resource is going to go over the training intensity, recovery, sleep, and stress management, because I don't want to make this way too long for you. I'm going to list those out in our resource, so they're super easy to come back to. And I want you to remember, too, I want you to be able to create your own versions, okay? The ones that I'm going to give you are ones that are based off of our typical clients, okay? So I've taken all of our clients, I've created the averages of what this would look like for them to get awesome results in the shred. But remember, you are your own person. You are the boss of your body. You know your life and your lifestyle the best. So please adjust the dials to fit your life, okay? And I want to remind you too, you are rarely going to crank all these dials to a 10 all at once, okay? That is how burnout happens. That is everyone, like New Year's, they're like, okay, 10 out of 10 on all of these things. It lasts for a week and then we drop off. We get frustrated and then we feel like something's wrong with us, right? So I'm going to show you how to dial these things up and down based on different situations and all that good stuff. So when do you actually use the dials? I like to use my dials any time that I have some predictable life moments and then even some unpredictable life moments. So vacations, travel, holidays, date nights, these are mostly planned. Sometimes we might have a spontaneous date night, but I've got an idea now in my head of what I dial my system to based on what season I'm in, what my goals are, and that sort of thing. Next, the maybe unplanned, unpredictable things are going to be like your injuries, illness, sometimes extreme PMS. If you're not expecting it, sometimes she would just slap you in the face. High stress, low sleep. There's also going to be some pretty big life events that happen. Seasons of loss, birth, transition, maybe moving, career changes, and that sort of thing. And that is when you're going to want to change the dials as well. And you're going to use these dials in addition to the skill of planning ahead, prioritizing, and prepping. And remember, that is our core practice, is making time for yourself. You are important and you deserve to fill your cup. You are worthy of treating yourself to a higher standard and a high level of health. So these dials kind of go in tandem with that planning ahead, prioritizing, and prepping. And essentially what you're doing with the dials is planning ahead. So let's dive into what this actually looks like in practice. We're going to talk about the nutrition dial first. And what you're going to see here is your dial, and I broke this down into a couple sections. Your 1 through 3 is going to be your foundational section. Think the small little habits that we started off with at the beginning. The small little habits that they don't feel too hard to do. You can do them in any situation. You don't need any extra tools for it. And they're things that once you have them, it's kind of like riding a bike. You can come back to these pretty easily, okay? So 1 is eat slowly and actually enjoy your food. So this is mindful eating. And you can imagine you can do a 1 anywhere, anytime, any meal, whatever that looks like for you. So if things are really, really stressful, or if you're just really wanting to enjoy that vacation without having too much to do with nutrition at all, and your goal is just to be extremely present, that's whenever I dial back to a 1 and I just eat slowly and enjoy the heck out of my food. Then if you dial that up to a 2, that's eating until 80% full. And each time you dial this up, I always think of it like I'm hitting this and then I'm also hitting this. So when I dial up, I'm not losing the structure of the one before it. I'm kind of adding on, I'm like layering on the habits. So then that would be eat until 80% full. Number 3 is using hand sized portions. So we're not tracking anything in these first 3 dials, okay? We're just using our natural habits that are things that we can come back to, that are easy to come back to. Then as we dial things up a little bit, we're going to find that we get more structured. We have like specific targets to go for and that sort of thing. So a 4 might be eat 1 palm or 20 to 30 grams of protein at each meal. So protein focused. Number 5, eat 1 fist or 1 cup of veggies at each meal. So now we're getting in some fiber. And then 6, use a food scale for most meals. And again, like I said at the beginning of this, you're going to adjust these dials to fit your lifestyle, to fit you. And so maybe use a food scale for most meals. Maybe a 6 for you might be use a food scale for breakfast. Or maybe that's use a food scale for 2 meals per day. Or use a food scale for Monday through Friday. Okay? So whatever that looks like for you, adjust as you go throughout this. And then our 7 through 10. So now we're getting into like 70% effort, 80%, maybe 100%. Sometimes we might dial up to a 10 if we're feeling like awesome and we've got this shit down. Okay. So 7 is log most of your meals in your app. So now you're using your food scale, you're prioritizing protein, you're actually logging those meals in your app. And that might look like, again, Monday through Friday logging, or maybe it's logging every single day. What does that look like for you specifically? Then 8, planning most meals ahead of time. So at this point in your journey, you're probably doing a lot of these things and you might be at an 8. I feel like whenever you are in a shred, for nutrition, this dial is going to be turned up a little bit more than the other dials, okay? Especially in a shred phase, that's whenever you want it up, okay? In different phases of your journey, you're going to be able to mess with these dials a little bit differently, and then you'll learn about how to adjust these dials in those different phases as we go throughout this program, okay? Next, and before I go on to what's next, if you have questions on this ahead of time, always just ask me, and we can talk about where to actually dial these things out to make it more tangible for you too. Awesome. Next is going to be prepping most of the ingredients. So you've got all of your meals planned out. Now we have to figure out how do we actually get those in our belly, right? So prepping most ingredients. Maybe this is like prepping all of your chicken ahead of time. You do the crock pot chicken, you've got it done, and now you've got all of your chicken for the week done. Awesome. And number 10 is prepping most meals. Or maybe this is ordering meal prep or hiring somebody for meal prep. Okay. And you can imagine the 10, that's a lot because you're doing all the things before it and the 10, right? So a 10 is perfect for like people that are in prep, or if maybe some of your other dials are dialed back a little bit, you can dial nutrition to a 10, and that's totally okay. The goal is not to max out all the time. It's just to match it to your current capacity, your current skills, the habits that you're working on, the time availability, your resources, and all of that, okay? So remember, it's not a hard rule. It's what you make it. And then we use this throughout our time together and in different seasons after coaching is over. Awesome. And you can find all the rest of the dials in your dial system resource. So I have like laid these out 1 through 10 for you as far as like what I would suggest. You can make a copy of this document and then you can adjust it for what you need and then come back to this document whenever you need it. I suggest bookmarking it somewhere that you can find it. Hopefully in some of the like materials that you've gathered from this course, from this whole program so far, keep it there. You can come back to it anytime you need it. Awesome. So how do we use the dials for planned events? Okay, so this is where I really want you to get into this like proactive thinking instead of reactive guilt. So you've probably gone through a vacation where you came back and maybe you weighed 5 to 10 pounds more and it sucked. Or you didn't even get on the scale because you were like, oh man, I know I'm going to weigh more. Okay, so instead of that happening anymore, we're going to ask some real questions that are going to help you to get proactive for this next event that you have. So you're going to ask yourself, what would make me feel proud of myself when I get home after this trip, this date, this holiday? What do I want to feel during the vacation, date, or holiday? What am I okay with dialing up or down? And you can also use the 5 whys exercise. So if you remember at the beginning of this journey, I asked you, what are your goals? And then in your first week, you do the 5 whys, where we ask you, like, why is that important? And why does that matter? You can really dive into that whenever it comes to these exercises, anything that you want to do. And it will help you to really discover the deeper why behind it, which is going to give you endless motivation. So if you do struggle with motivation on like doing the dial system or any goal that you have, 5 whys is like a cheat code for that. Awesome. So what about the unplanned stressors? Okay, so we have to do this kind of work ahead of time, because the thing is, unplanned stress is guaranteed. It is not avoidable. There are going to be hard things, and the focus is, how do I stay in the process? Okay? So you're going to ask yourself very compassionately, by the way, giving yourself like a lot of grace through this, being that kind friend that you would be to your friend, okay? So, first question is, what would make me feel proud on the other side of this? So, when I say this, I would like you to think of something that might happen or something that has happened in your past, okay? And I want you to, again, give yourself a lot of grace. Do not judge yourself for how you handled it in the past. You are a new person in this moment. You have a lot more bricks than you had in that moment before. So do not beat yourself up for how you handled it before. We're using this moment to kind of learn and plan for another moment that might happen. So if it does feel heavy, I would suggest picking something a little bit less heavy. Maybe like the last time you got sick, or the last time you had a small injury like a strain or something like that, okay? So diving back in, what would make me feel proud of myself on the other side of this? What will help me to dial things back without pausing? What areas of my life need dialed up or down to manage this? And a hint here is, sometimes we dial back training intensity and we dial up recovery, or we dial up sleep, or we dial up stress management. And sometimes nutrition can be dialed back a little bit so that we can dial these other places up, or the amount of activity that you're doing. So we don't have it on these dials, but your steps or your actual movement, like how often you are moving, might dial back down a little bit so that you can prioritize sleep for a short period of time, okay? And I want to remind you as well, this too shall pass. Pain is temporary, and you can do hard things. Remind yourself of these things very often in your own head. Repeat them anytime you are going through one of these harder things. You got this. And what does success actually look like? So I want to say this so clearly. Success does not equal perfect weeks. Progress does not equal perfect weeks. What happens when you actually make progress is it's because you showed up imperfectly. You adjusted without guilt. You stayed in the process. You have become this person who, when something happens, you adapt to it instead of quitting. And that is so freaking cool. So I hope you take a second to like really let that set in, because you are here right now and you've made so much progress thus far. You have not given up in the face of hardship, and now you've got a really solid tool and system to use for the next time something hard happens. So let's freaking go. Awesome. So your next action this week is not actually going to be a habit or an action. Well, the action is going to be answering these reflective questions, okay? So answer these questions. If you need to, take a screenshot of this, or I will have a link to the slides in this one as well, so that you can come back to these and answer them if you'd like. But journal these out, write them out, and then you can post these in your next check-in, or go ahead and post them in the group chat, okay? Talk about your thoughts, maybe bring them into our next coaching call or something like that, and that'll help us to really hash out like what thoughts were popping up for you as you went through this one. So I'll ask them out loud to you, and if you'd like, you can pause them and reflect as you go, and let's dive in. So look back. What recent events or stressors came up for you? Was there illness? Was there work stress? Was there a patient or client altercation? Something like that, some sort of conflict somewhere, conflict within your marriage, conflict with kids or scheduling. Which dials will you adjust next time this happens to align with your goals, if any? Then look ahead. What events are coming up for you in the near future? Let's say the next like week to month. Is that date nights? Is that vacation, travel, friends and family visiting, or you visiting them? And which styles will you adjust to align with your goals during this next event? Awesome. I hope this really sparked some insights, and I'm so excited to hear what your insights are. I really do suggest talking about this one in the group chat or messaging me or talking about it in one of our calls, because it's going to help so many other people. Like, seeing your ideas really sparks ideas for others and also lets them know they're not alone, because you're going to find that you connect on a lot of different things that you would not expect. And I'm going to leave you with this. There is a past version of you who is so proud of the woman that you are today. And really let that soak in. The woman that you're becoming, the skills you're building, like, this is so awesome, and you're doing so much better than you think. Again, take a moment to let that soak in, and I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next one.